All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our fifth episode of Car Talk, which is our CAF Northern California trying to keep some sense of community and momentum going while we're all stuck at home and until we can go back on the road. So thank you for joining us. Today happens to be Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So it's really a perfect day for us to be together and talk about digital access and inclusivity of everybody of all abilities. So for that, we have a great panel tonight. I'm super excited. Brandon, Jason, and Sully, thank you so much for joining us. Our moderator tonight is our very own CAF cycling manager, Jamie Lynch. So thank you, Jamie, for being here with us and for taking the time to have a chat about virtual training and trainers and what we should be doing until we can get back on the road and be in good shape again. So Jamie, you go at it.
I'm going to go at it here. Thank you, Lotta. I really appreciate it. It is an honor to be here. I have had the pleasure of being an attendee for the last 4 episodes, and because all of you asked for more business, more shows, we decided to do an encore. So today we have Jason Karavitas from CAF. He's actually a CAF Senior Business Manager for Business Development. He is a triathlete. He has done an Ironman. He's currently a dad of 1, but soon to be dad of 3. So we can hear all the exciting information about what it's like to train indoors and outdoors and for triathlons and Ironmans being a dad. So welcome, Jason. We're really happy to have you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and after I introduce everybody, they can briefly just tell you how long they've been with CAF, how they got involved, and tell a little bit about their own story, and then we'll go into the awesome questions and indoor trainers and apps and all the good stuff there. So next we have Brandon Lyons. He is our athlete, hand cyclist. He's a Paralympian. Brandon was injured in 2014 and had a T5, T6 accident, if you will. He can tell you a little bit about his story. But we at CAF were blessed to have Brandon come into our community in 2017 when he was crazy enough to do his first event, that is the MDC. And then last but not least, we have the infamous and wonderful Sully, Robert Sully Sullivan. He is just a media fixture and light in San Diego. He's been on the news. He has the Big Biz Show. He owns Jump Television. And he's been, I think, doing that for about 25 years. So Sully, I'm going to have you start. Tell us kind of what brought you to CAF, what keeps you involved in CAF, and then we'll toss the ball to Jason.
Well, unlike Jason, I've watched an Ironman. At least 3 times, and I cried like I was watching a Hallmark commercial every time I did. But I got involved with Challenge Athletes Foundation through a couple of friends of mine. Nancy Canutula and I were in a spin class, and I was a taco shy of 400 pounds at the time, a victim of my own success and in broadcast media and business. And I decided to take a spin class, and there was a couple of people that were pretty significant. Dan Negroni, who's a longtime supporter of Challenge Athletes Foundation, walked to the back of the spin class because he noticed I was staring out the window at the clock. And I was thinking if I could just make it 10 minutes out of a 60-minute class, I would do it. So he and I became friends. And I became friends with Nancy Canutula, who was doing this crazy ride down the coast. And I remember hearing about it from Dean Roper, and Jeff Anthony, who were close friends of mine. And I was in a gospel band at our church, and I remember asking those guys if I could interview them on national radio. We weren't television yet at the time; we were just national radio. And those guys were in Big Sur, I guess, on a Monday, and they said, "Yeah, we're going to pull over the side of the road at a certain time, and we're going to call into the program." And I remember, and if you talk to Jeff Anthony and you talk to Dean Roper, they'll tell you. When it's radio and we have you guys call in as guests, you typically call in during a commercial break. You got to wait there for about 10 minutes. So there they are on the side of the hill because it had to be a specific time. And I started talking to these guys about this crazy ride they were doing down the coast called the $1 Million Challenge. And lo and behold, a couple years later, as I checked off riding up Torrey Pines one time off my life list. Would never do that again. Somebody talked me into start riding, and I think this will be my 10th year involved in the $1 Million Challenge. And I bought into this organization very early, seeing the impact it had. And I would say, I say this to people all the time, with the exception of media, everything good in my life, friends, business, relationships have come from Challenge Athletes Foundation. So we started a couple of years ago. We donated my TV studio services to you folks to produce video there. And then, so now not only am I completely bought in, my entire staff is bought in, and they've become family of Challenge Athletes Foundation now. And yeah, it's turned into a life-changing event, and it's something that I try to promote, not only in my national format, but also locally. And then of course, when we're on stage playing in front of folks with the band, we try to give as much love as we can. But yeah, I can tell you every single good thing in my life has come from it, and 10 years going strong so far.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jason, tell us a little bit about how you came to CAF. And then after that, I would love for you to kind of show us indoor cycling and your get up, and then we'll toss it to Brandon, and Brandon can tell his CAF story and show us his setup, or talk to us about his setup.
Perfect. Yeah. And I won't do everyone the favor of getting on the bike for the demo, but I'll give a little snapshot of the pain cave. But similar with Sully, like it starts small, and I started as a volunteer maybe it was 2012, and I volunteered for CAF San Diego Triathlon Challenge down at La Jolla Cove, sat in an expo booth for a sponsor. And it's one of those moments, like once you're there and once you see it and feel it, it's so hard to look away from the mission and the power of especially that weekend. Very similar to the $1 Million Challenge, where you're immersed in this experience in this peloton with so many athletes that you've got to know over a long time. So volunteered, and that I knew right then and there, like, this is where I need to be for my career. And then like had to start, like, I remember looking up Bob Babbitt's email address and like went down the list, and eventually was given the opportunity to come work with CAF as part of the events and fundraising team, and then transitioned into business development. So I have the opportunity now to work with many of our partners and sponsors, Sully included. Thank you. And, as a side thing, yes, I'm a triathlete. I'm not a professional. Those photos make it look like that, but that's just good photography. And I'm a dad. So that's where indoor cycling really came in. And I spend hours upon hours on this setup here. And what you can see running in the background is Zwift, that we can talk about in a little bit. But it's really become, especially in this day and age, sort of the game changer for a lot of people as you're stuck inside or more cautious about how you're doing your longer rides and things like that. And, for me, it's been, a slight adjustment. And for many, now that you're inside a lot, hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight into what you can do, how you can do it, and a lot of fun that you can get out of playing a cycling video game.
I love it. Thank you. And how about you, Brandon? Tell us a little bit about your CAF history and your indoor setup.
Sure. Yeah. So I was injured in May 2014, and I actually relocated out to San Diego. So I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and following my injury, relocated out to San Diego in 2015 for a stem cell clinical trial, which was based out of UC San Diego in La Jolla. And unfortunately, while I was in San Diego for a year and a half, I actually never heard of CAF. So was never at a Challenge Athletes Foundation event, or, had an opportunity to really connect with any of the athletes during that time while I was there. But while I was in San Diego, had an opportunity to, get on a hand cycle, meet David Bailey, who was a prior CAF athlete and, just a great ambassador of what CAF's mission is. And, really was the one that encouraged me from more of a mentorship level to really get into hand cycling from an elite athlete perspective. And that actually transitioned myself out to the Olympic Training Center to join the residence program here within the U.S. Paralympic cycling team. And at our first international event, which took place in Emmen in the Netherlands in 2017, my teammate, friend, as you guys could probably all guess who that is Jamie Whitmore. She was the one at this event that was talking about this ride that started in San Francisco. You ride the whole entire coast down to California as that was coming up, because that was in June of 2017, and they were preparing for the MDC, that same summer. So I had left that race and immediately contacted Sydney, who was in that position, to, just kind of give her an introduction of who I was. And I was this guy that was very interested. And I'm sure she was thinking, who is this guy? I've never even heard of him. And now he wants to ride down the coast. He's never even been a part of this family. And can he actually physically do it? And I believe that a lot of different, ambassadors of the MDC were reaching out to Jamie and Billy Lister and Joe Walsh and Steve and just saying, can this guy actually ride down the coast? We're going to bring him out here. And fortunately enough, I was invited with open arms, and that was my first experience in 2017. And I really just drank all the Kool-Aid. I left that first MDC saying, immediately going to sign up for 2018. And now it's been 3 years in a row that I've done the MDC, every single mile of it with Jamie, and the rest of the group. And it's just been a phenomenal family to be a part of.
That's awesome. That's great. We love having you. That's for sure. So I do know, I think you all have told me that Zwift is kind of amongst other apps and training apps. I know, Brandon, you said you've tried Sufferfest before. There are different things that you've all tried, but I would love to hear from you, Sully, first. Why Zwift? Why do you go to Zwift?
I found Zwift in 2017 when I had my first knee replacement, for the same reasons Jason said, because it is just a death march trying to ride your bike inside the garage, trying to watch a movie. That lasts about 7 minutes. And it lasted like 7 minutes, like 10 times. And I finally figured this thing out. And the funny part about Zwift is there used to be a learning curve when it first came out. So you'd have it all set up, you all ready to go. You'd have your kit on and everything was dialed up, and then your bike wouldn't connect. And then your bike would connect, and then the screen would go out. And after a while, they really got it figured out. It was a cool thing. So I did my knehab of my first knee replacement through Zwift for 3 solid months before I went outside. And it was interesting because it translated really well. And then I had another knee replacement right after MDC last year. So literally we got off the bike in October or whatever. And 2 weeks later, I did my left knee. And this time I talked to Lenita Anthony, who's one of the ride leaders. And Lenita Anthony knew me when I was a taco shy of 400. And so did Jeff. And she was one of the people that got me in shape. But I said, look, I want to come out of this knee surgery like a fire-breathing dragon. I want to do full-blown in the basement. I'm going to come out, and when we start training in April or May, and be super fast again. So she put me on this program called Trainer Road, which is very similar to Zwift in that it has programs on there, but it's more of a if you ever had Cody Stevenson train you personally in cycling, it's more one-on-one training that's designed for you. It doesn't have the gamification. It doesn't have the AR sort of thing that goes on, which makes riding go by so much faster. So what I do now, when I have Trainer Road on, I open up Zwift at the same time. I squash the screen down on Zwift to the bottom so I can still see the AR thing. And then when you're on Trainer Road, it doesn't have any graphics. It just has somebody yelling at you. So I turn a movie on up top. I got Zwift on the bottom, and I got Trainer Road going. And once again, I mean, this knee surgery is taking a little longer than last time, but thankfully I can ride my bike at 2 PM. There's no cars out right now because of what we're going through. But yeah, so yeah, Zwift turned into Trainer Road. And I have to say, for me, Zwift is way more fun, but I think Trainer Road was more effective in getting me from point A to point B with respect to what the training thing was.
Got it. Thank you. And Jason, we'll just go back to the basics a little bit. Love hearing how Sully kind of got involved with those different apps, but can you tell us like just the nitty gritty, the basics of what you need at a minimum to ride Zwift for anybody who doesn't maybe have the app or doesn't have a smart trainer? How do we get on this app, and how do we start? Where do we start?
Well, yeah, I'd say the app itself is probably the easy part, and some of the gear that you'd want to be prepped with at minimum. And there's different levels of like optimization for how you could utilize and ride on Zwift. But at base level, you've got to have some form of a trainer. It does not have to be a smart trainer. You could still ride on Zwift without one, or even you could ride with rollers for that matter, with a speed and cadence sensor and ideally a power meter. And those things are replaced and sort of upgraded with what you've seen probably out on the market, like a smart trainer. So I ride with a Wahoo Kicker. I think that's what Brandon rides with as well. But there's a lot of like great options out on the market for a smart trainer, which basically means the program, whatever that may be. So Zwift in this case controls the resistance on the trainer. So if the program is looking like you're going up a hill, it's going to make it harder. So you're going to have to adjust your riding style and power accordingly. So, and then you could add on from that, like, essentials probably everyone would say from training in garages is like have a fan, have towels, heart rate monitors, and all of that sort of thing helps, again, get better data for how you train and work on some of these things. But at base level, if somebody really wanted to get on it and they had a fluid trainer and a speed cadence sensor, they could do it. Just the feel and sort of intent of the game isn't going to be at 100% of what it could be.
Got it. Okay. And Brandon, what about for you on your setup? Do you have a whole different hand cycle that attaches to your Wahoo, or kind of tell us a little bit about your setup?
Sure. Yeah. So going essentially what Jason said, you essentially have every option that a regular bike has with using a hand cycle. Just you have to do certain modifications. So if you wanted to ride a fluid trainer, with the wheel on, you have that option. I want to get in the position that I'm in racing and riding and using the same bike. So as you see in the pictures here, my bike is attached to a Wahoo. If anyone knows the hand cycle, essentially the way that I describe it, it's upside down and inverse to a regular bicycle. So the front wheel of a hand cycle is the drive wheel. And the way that the gearing is in the derailleur, it hangs upside down. So unfortunately, the trainer has to hang upside down in order for you to get the bike on the trainer. So you see in the picture, I've mounted my Wahoo trainer to a table that is the same height that a 700, just a regular wheel, would be. And then it's the exact same bike that I have on, that I take on the road. So it's a great setup because I can get in the position that I'm actually riding and training in, and just to be comfortable in that position out on the road and then indoors as well.
That's awesome. And so were you into indoor training before you started trying out for the Paralympics, or this is a new thing as an extra additive for that? Or tell us kind of how you got into this. Yeah,
so prior to my journey with the Paralympics, was not an indoor rider at all. I definitely wanted to be out on the roads as much as I possibly could. As I got into the Paralympic journey and really structured training, I would say I started to incorporate indoor training more, but it's really been over the last 2 years to the last 1 year that I've even incorporated it, throughout my progression as I'm building to certain events, just from that structure standpoint of being out here in Colorado Springs or really anywhere, having to stop at traffic lights, having to, go down a hill, up a hill. So it's very hard to keep that structured training at your certain intervals that you have that ability and that functionality with indoor training.
That's awesome. And so I'm going to kick it back to you, Sully. Let's talk about just what keeps you motivated when you're on these indoor trainers. Like, why, if I can go outside, you live in sunny San Diego, you can go outside. Why are we training on an indoor trainer?
What keeps me motivated?
Yeah.
Lunch.
Yeah.
Dinner.
Question answered. Moving on.
Yeah, it's funny. I think humans are more motivated by the avoidance of pain than anything else. And I know I'm, since I have suffered many, many miles with CAF trying to ride above my level. And now my, being a ride leader for so many years, and now my group is getting strong. So I just, at this point, it's about, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I start thinking about, I can't lose face with the mayor if he ever beat me up a hill, or chief of police, or my people in my group are getting fast now, and now they're getting addicted to cycling, and now they're getting in 100 150 miles a week, like what I used to be able to do. So at this point for me, it's about pain avoidance, honestly, because I wouldn't do it. I would not ride indoor at all if I thought I could get out of my bike and go keep up with everybody. But for me, and everybody goes through those couple of weeks usually we start training. I think for me this year, I thought to myself, I don't want to go through those 2 weeks this time. I want to hit the ground running. I got a new whip from Bill Holland that's made out of the stealth bomber material. He claims it will be the first bike that I won't be able to break. So I wanted to come out of the gate going hard. So I got myself a Wahoo kicker bike,
Okay.
which you can set up kind of like your regular bike. And I have it up in a gym, connect it to the TV and do the whole deal. But yeah, I will still tell you that, and I don't know if there is a ratio metric, but I'm going to say riding indoors, I don't care what it is twice as hard and twice as taxing as riding on the road. I mean, and I know that I've heard my buddy Buzz Burnett say it's worth 1.5 times, and I've heard other folks say something like that. I got to believe it's worth like 2 times, because it's still, regardless of all these great tools, everything. And I'm supposed to have the most state-of-the-art, most comfortable. It's set up exactly like my bike. Cody Stevenson measured me on it. It was all set. It's still a pain in the ass. I mean, like literally a pain in the ass. So to answer your question in a long-winded fashion, I ride indoors to avoid pain and embarrassment.
Okay, that's fair. It sounds like everybody's onto this Wahoo kicker. So Jason, maybe talk to us about a few of the different speed trainers, if you could, and tell us why you chose the Wahoo trainer.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. I got this as a surprise birthday gift a few years ago. So I inherited it, but it was a great selection from my wife. So happy with that. Wahoo is a very popular brand. TACX has good models, Cyclops. So a number of the brands that have a non-power trainer also likely will have this, higher level. Like Brandon's Wahoo called a direct drive trainer, and that's where you take the rear wheel off. And that's something that I've found to be more effective and definitely more mainstream when it comes to trainers that you pair up with an app like Zwift.
Got it. Okay. And then Brandon, I'm going to kick it to you. Why did you choose Zwift? Like, why is Zwift the app that you train with as opposed to the other ones?
Yeah, essentially early on, I was trying Sufferfest. I tried Zwift. Zwift was just a way to essentially just occupy my brain differently, because it has that gaming feature. I don't have 5 screens up like Sully. I'm watching 8 movies over here, playing a game over here. I just have Zwift up, and then as well as, depending on if I'm doing, structured training or not, I may be watching something in the background. But Zwift also, it has the functionality. All of my training is through an app that's called Training Peaks. So it has that functionality that connects directly to Training Peaks. So I can do all of my structured training in Zwift. So if you had a structured work, the thing I like about Zwift, I like about Wahoo, is there's a mode that's called erg mode. So it essentially takes all of the guessing and all the thinking out of your head and lets the trainer do the work. So if I had to ride at 150 watts for 5 minutes, the trainer's going to go to that resistance, and essentially you just pedal the bike, and you're going to be able to do that. So there's different functionality that way. But as I've started to get involved in Zwift and really ride more indoors, I've seen really the cohesiveness and the connection that it provides as well. So I've been able to, ride with other hand cyclists from Argentina that I would, put on a ride with. So it was a great opportunity to stay connected within, this small community of hand cyclists as well as, and then just other cyclists also.
Okay.
Jamie, can I say something about erg mode?
Yeah.
Erg mode was invented by Satan. Okay, I mean, first of all, yes, it makes you ride. So if Zwift says you have to ride 150 watts for 5 minutes, it'll do it. But I'm telling you right now, it is way harder to ride in erg mode than if you take it off of erg mode and try to hit the watch yourself. It is horrible. But it's the best way to do it, but it is not fun. There's nothing fun about erg mode. That person should be jailed. Should be a felony for the person who invented erg mode. It's horrible.
Well,
the way I've seen it, I honestly think it goes both ways, and it depends on, at least my experience is, it depends on what the interval is, how hard it is, and then how long it is.
Yeah, I'll take erg mode for 20 seconds at 600 watts, but 5 minutes at 180 or 210 is horrible.
See, I find it the other way around. I feel the short sprints it's hard to get into it. And then if you're going back and forth, so say if you were doing a 30-30 type interval, there are challenges with, you get through that 30 seconds at, you know, whatever wattage. And then as you go down to recover, sometimes it doesn't really allow you to recover.
Right.
Because it wants to keep you at a certain cadence to kind of get that around. So it's trying to become familiar with that and easing into each interval. But yeah, it's definitely not for the weak-minded.
Well, do you know why erg mode's horrible is because you can't cheat. You can't,
Right.
That's the reason. You have to, and you try to shift gears and stuff, and you're shifting gears, and for a second it feels better, but it takes you, you can't cheat on erg mode. That's why it's horrible.
Jason, how do you feel about erg mode?
I use it outside of events that disables it because it's making you ride the course. I use it exclusively, and you know, there's something to be said about, Sully, you mentioned efficiency and how much more, like, that's what comes to mind with indoor training at its finest. Is it doesn't, like, if you stop pedaling the bike, you're not coasting anymore, you stop.
Right.
But you could cruise all you want on the roads. So this really allows you to focus in on like a good dedicated session, or if you're going to go ride long, yeah, turn off erg mode and ride the course.
All right, interesting. So that kind of makes me think about like workouts and how Zwift offers workouts. Brandon, have you ever tried the Zwift workout edition?
Yeah, so they have different plans and different training plans. So essentially, like what Sully was mentioning, if you were to go into Trainer Road, you're put into a certain training plan, and then you kind of build through. I don't know how long Zwifts each are. I've never actually experienced it, but I know people that have done, you know, a time trial plan, or they've done a triathlon plan, depending on what they're looking to achieve. As well as they have different, you know, FCP tests that are out there for people to, you know, go out and test themselves and to see what their zones need to be at, so they can, you know, make sure they're hitting the right zones for training from an indoor trainer perspective.
And Jason, what about you? Like how exactly does one set up a workout or do a workout in Zwift?
Well, a few different ways. Brandon mentioned the fact that a lot of like external coaching resources, including like, you know, my personal coach writes workouts, and if she's on, hi McKeely, I'm following your plan. But that you can actually take a workout file that's created by somebody else and upload it in, and whatever it's telling you to do, probably in erg mode, that's what you're going to be forced into doing for that workout. You can also create your own. So you decide you want to do some crazy weird interval thing, they have a build your own workout. So if you feel like doing that, you could. And then they do have anywhere, it's got to be from like 3-week to 12-week programs for all sorts of different goals, which also allow you to just kind of like drop in and pick and choose. If you see a workout within a plan that you like, you can grab that, do that for the day, and then not be stuck in a 12-week cycle.
Got it. Okay.
I would argue that anybody who likes erg mode should do the ringer on Zwift. Go over to workouts and type in or click on the one that says the ringer, and you tell me how much you like erg mode. I'm not suggesting it's not the best way to do it, because it probably is. But if you're going to drift towards erg mode, I can assure you of that. Go do the ringer on Zwift, and then you'll never want to do it again. Now,
Sally, are you a big drafter on Zwift then too, or?
Much like the road, there's not much I can draft behind. I'm a popular guy on the road because I'm the UPS truck, but I don't think you get any. I mean, they say you get benefit out of it on Zwift. I'm not sure I've ever feel it. And honestly, the only time this erg mode's really hassled me is when I do long, slow distance stuff. If I've got to stay, you know, for example, at 200 watts for, you know, 5 minutes at a time or something like that, it's horrible. But for the most part, it's good. But as far as drafting goes, if you can go on Zwift, what I like to do if I'm going to go on Zwift nowadays is I don't train on Zwift. If I need to kill time, if it's raining outside or something like that, I'll do my training on Trainer Road. But if I go on Zwift, I'll pick a route, and you have an option of what the route is. I usually pick the one where most of the riders are. So you can pick there's an option for you to pick, and I think it's called most riders near you or something like that. And you click on that, and it plops you in the program where the most people are, and you can try to draft. I'm not sure you get benefit, but then again, it's a computer, so who knows? It's a computer game.
That's fair. So I would love to know how many days a week each of you use as a trainer during COVID or has been using, and then pre-COVID? Like how much has changed? How often are you on your indoor trainers now, and how often were you on them before? We'll start with you, Brandon.
Yes, I'll go. Just this past year, it actually hasn't changed. I've used indoor training Monday through Friday, and then depending on the weather here in Colorado, Saturday, Sunday, I get outdoors. It's just a lot more efficient than getting outdoors, and then to manage, both work along with training. It's so easy to have the bike on the trainer, ready to go. Being in the training center now with COVID, being stuck in this small dorm room, I essentially sleep beside the bike. So just the time that it takes for me to get the bike on and off the trainer, it's not worth it. And for me to get the structured training that I have during the week to, just to manage both efficiently, it's honestly fantastic.
I love it. Jason?
During the week, that hasn't changed much. It's usually 3 times a week during the week. And then my weekend ride, like the long session, is now on the trainer, whereas it would have been on the road previous. So I usually, for those of you who are on Strava and have seen how ugly my training sessions are, it's usually starting with like a 4 a.m. number and like finishing before 7. So, it's also nice because it's dark, and that's a lot safer.
It's true. Sally, what about you?
I will tell you, I've gotten in shape because of the trainer, and I was able to knee-hab, but the only time I use it now is if it's raining outside. So, I try to get in, now that I'm healthy again, I try to get in 4 outdoor rides a week. And typically, what I find it good for now is if, my radio day starts so early, but if it's 8 o'clock at night and I've got a half hour or 40 minutes to kill, that half hour 40 sweet spot, you can get a lot done on Zwift in 40 minutes if you do it. It's kind of one of those things where I use it now just to augment mileage. If I can catch another 5-10 miles a day on Zwift, and I, like yesterday, for example, I worked out in the morning, then I did a ride up the coast and went inland for a while. Then last night I jumped on Zwift for another 30 minutes because you can kill 30 minutes at a time. So when it rains, 100% of the time I'll be on that thing. It's the reason I avoid it is because it's so damn hard. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that it does work. And I would rather be able to coast, as Jason said, outside and fake it than have to actually do the work, which would explain why I'm still group ride leader for group 3 and 4 and group 00.
So a really good question, and something kind of just bringing it back to the basics, maybe for some people who are thinking about getting, a smart trainer or a manual trainer or any sort of thing like that. If you don't have a power meter, is the wattage that you're putting out reported on Zwift? Like, do you see that?
I don't think so. I don't think you have to have a power meter for it to do it.
No, so you could ride the course, and what it's picking up is the speed from your speed and cadence sensor. So it'll like give you the ability to ride and follow along the course, but it's not going to reflect like you see a big hill and then suddenly that's going to change quite a bit. So it's relying on you to control your shifting and things a little bit more yourself.
But on the other hand, though, if you have your Zwift or your Trainer Road or your Training Peaks optimized to Strava, in other words, if it automatically reports, Strava will calculate based upon your weight and your speed a power number, but I'm not sure how accurate it is.
And so if you don't have, let's say you have a manual trainer and I have just a speed and a cadence sensor and I see this hill, I have to just be honest to like make it harder on myself? Or, is that what the power meter would do to help somebody get up a hill, or?
I think it is a little bit of honesty. It's not going to let you go 25 miles an hour up the hill. Like that's where Zwift is a big data machine, and that's how they're going to calculate things like drafting too, is like, it's all based on data. So like they're going to know how fast you're going on flat, and then based on that, be able to somehow calculate what that adjustment's going to be like up or down a hill. But it's not going to, like in terms of accuracy, or like would you be able to go race one of the, a Zwift championship race. They have virtual racing now. Probably not.
Got it. And then Brandon, could you put a hand cycle with just a speed and cadence sensor, or you need to have a smart trainer, or does it pretty much run the same way, the way that it's
Yep, so it's essentially the exact same setup as a bike. So if you had for other hand cycles, a popular trainer early on is, this small little roller that's from Sportscrafter. So you could hook that up to Zwift as long as you had a speed and a cadence sensor, and then you would hook that up through Amp Plus. So it's an Amp Plus dongle. So a lot of the smart trainers and the power meters nowadays are Bluetooth compatible. So that's the way that Zwift is reading that. If you just had a speed sensor and a cadence sensor, you would likely need an Amp Plus dongle. So it's a USB cord that comes out, and then that's what's reading that sensor, which is then providing that information into Zwift.
Okay, makes sense. So technical. So then I would love to learn more about just like riding in a group riding on Zwift. Do you guys often do your own meetups? Do you do events? Do you ride in official organized groups? Kind of talk to me about what your standard rides are and what you prefer.
I'll jump on that one. Yeah, I've done sort of like the full split. Like I've done some races, done some bigger group sort of events. Zwift has a really big one going on now that's raising money for COVID relief. That's sort of like a staged event thing. And I've also done sort of meetups, which are a little less formal, but it allows, like, if me and my 50 friends decided we wanted to ride at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I could coordinate that and it would drop everyone's little rider next to each other and you can go ride together. It's interesting. Any like open group ride very quickly turns into a race. Like it's not this, Sully laughs,
It's like the recovery week on MDC.
The egos on, the egos on Zwift with watts per kilogram are really interesting. And so like when somebody says, oh, this is going to be this casual group ride, then there's always the people that press the pace. Or if there's like a celebrity rider, Peter Sagan did one a few weeks back that I got on, and it was nuts. Like everyone was trying to drop Peter, and then Peter virtually got ticked off and probably dropped everyone. So it's interesting, but it's fun because you can also interact with other riders. You can have some dialogue. If it's your friends, like it's a fun way to kill like an hour. If I was going to go ride, I could take this group on the call and we could still chat it up during the ride, where you might not be able to have that same level of conversation elsewhere.
Brandon,
I'll just add, so I'm just going to add to it that there's also different types of group rides. So what Jason was mentioning, you do have that compatibility where, okay, we're going to create this meetup that everyone goes in and joins, and it's just a regular ride. So if I were to push the pace, well, then you would have to push the pace to keep up with me. Or you could set the ride up as a non-drop ride. So any type of athlete from any ability could all ride together, regardless of the amount of watts that you're putting out. So it's a great opportunity. If you wanted to truly do a recovery ride, you could push 50 watts and still ride with someone that's pushing 200 watts. So there is some of that functionality that way that's built in, which has been great. But yeah, I mean, to Jason's point, I've set up some, various group rides from my side, and it does turn into that every single time. It is truly a race, and some of the hardest workouts I've ever done on Zwift.
And are you able to, Jason mentioned maybe being able to chat with people. Are you able to do that on a hand cycle? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so that's what's tough. I mean, obviously having both of your hands on the pedals the entire time, there's not as much, that you could go into type. Some of the things that make it a little bit easier. So within my setup, as you can see, the computer was on top of the table, and that's essentially out of reach as I'm laying down. So you can do two different things. You can hook up Zwift through your phone, through the companion app or through the Zwift app on your phone, which then gives you the functionality, at least it's there in reach, that you're able to, text back and forth with someone if you wanted to. We've also connected into Zoom on a section I've done before, so you can actually speak through, the headset and you're fine to have some dialogue that way. Or if you just had the PC there, a wireless mouse is a game changer for me as well, because it gives me the ability to to do the different functions that, you know, just the computer's out of reach.
All right. I love that. And now, Sally, are you normally just joining in on random events, or are you creating your own meetups with all your posse here? Or
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to create my own meetup. You can use the Zwift companion. Like if you go on and there's a Zwift app and there's a section called events that you can do. And basically it's in your time zone. So if you hit events, I can see like there's at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, there's a volcano climb. And if I want to do that, and then you know, like Jason says, you know, you go in there and it'll say A, B, C, D, and it's like group 1, 2, 3, and 4 riders. And it would be like a bunch of group 1 riders saying they were group 4 riders. So none of it's all garbage. So the only way you could beat that thing, and when those things happen, is you say that you weigh 120 pounds on your profile. So you're blowing out 600 watts when you're just spinning. And that's the only way. I mean, it's honestly, and I will tell you that all the complaining I do about indoor training is because it is so good for you. And I think that in a perfect world, I would tell everyone to get off a Peloton bike, get out of spin class, and do indoor training instead, because it is 10 times harder, because you can't cheat because of the erg mode. But at the same time, I mean, after a while, when you go to these things and you're just like getting destroyed on a stupid, you know, it's supposed to a group 4 meetup coffee ride, and the next thing you know, you're vomiting and you're making animal noises while you're riding your bike. You know, at some point you got to figure out what the cheats are, and I figured out every one of them.
Oh.
I weigh like 60 pounds on that.
I was like, yeah, do you want to tell the group just maybe a good little pointer?
Yeah, you say you're 25 years old and you weigh $130, and then you crank on that thing. Like you give yourself the dimensions of a really fit Olympic woman cyclist, and then you get on your bike as a gorilla, and the thing will show that you're blowing 600 watts just when you're barely pedaling. You're like at a 60 cadence, and you're going downhill. It's awesome. No, I don't do that often, but I have gone to those classes and got really frustrated though.
That's fair. That makes sense. Now, I know, Brandon, you mentioned the A&T Plus, or like the dongle. I have heard that you can ride with just a speed and cadence sensor. Is that true? Or you do need the dongle, Jason? What do you need for an upright?
Yes, you'd still need that. So basically a speed cadence sensor, just like if you think of why you'd have it on your bike outdoors, it's probably like talking to your Garmin or whatever your head unit computer is through A&T or through Bluetooth. The same holds true for the speed and cadence sensor needing to talk back to something. And in this case, it's getting the data to Zwift through your computer. So if it's A&T compatible, then you need the A&T dongle. If it's a Bluetooth enabled, then a lot of laptops these days have Bluetooth already there. So it's just a matter of syncing a device just like you'd sync up your Bluetooth phone. But yeah, you need something to help it communicate.
Great.
Can I say one good thing about trainers indoors?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no chatter. You don't have guys like Tom Smith in your ear the entire time, just yapping at you. You know, there's not guys like me that are just chipping away at your soul the entire day. So one of the things is you can choose whether or not you can communicate with people. But
I like that. Okay.
no, it's I mean, there's like 2 or 3 good things about it.
2 or 3. Hey,
I feel a lot better about my training setup now, hearing Sully and his suffering that is going on.
It is painful being a gorilla on a bicycle. I'll just tell you that.
What I'm trying to figure out is, Jason, what is the benefit of having 2 screens? Because it looks like we're playing the same thing. We know that Sully watches movies, he does Trainer Road, and he has Zwift, so he probably has like 14 different screens.
It's all about It's all about beating boredom, honestly, I think.
But I mean, it looks like he has 2 in his little hookup. It looks like he has.
I do. That's me being lazy, but normally, so I've got the laptop, small version, and that's what that's what's controlling the game itself. And then it's just a HDMI cable to a big screen, or not a big screen these days, but just a bigger monitor that's in front of so usually I actually have the computer closed. Like I don't do much because I can use the app if I need to message somebody, but it just gives like a better view of that to have a smaller one. But to Sully's point, I could watch a movie on that other thing. I could send emails if I really wanted to, but usually erg mode's preventing my heart rate to go that low. to be able to manage it.
And Jason, just pointing out, you're missing two drill bits and you've got a broken spoke on that left wheel over there.
That really stresses me out. Thanks for bringing
Just
that
looking
up.
at the crap behind you in your garage there.
This is my sanctuary here. So this is all I get.
Brandon, a kind of a technical question for you. We'll see if you have the answer for this or not. But somebody's wondering in our Q&A section, if you have a Wahoo kicker, what it sounds like you do, and a hand cycle with a speed and cadence sensor, but no power meter, when you're taking the ramp tests or the FTP tests, would the data that you're receiving be accurate, or do you need to get that power meter to ensure accuracy?
So there is going to be a difference, at least from what I see. So I have a rotor power meter that's in my crank, and then I have the power meter also that's in the smart trainer itself. So you would still get power data from the kicker, but then it is just doing, I would honestly do a test with the kicker, and then I would do a test with the power meter that you have, if you do have power, to see what that difference is, because there is some type of variance, at least that I see. I think Wahoo says it's around 1% to 2%, which is the difference, or what they claim. But that honestly depends on, are you calibrating both? That's extremely important to calibrate both the trainer and then your power meter as well.
Got it. That makes sense. And then would you guys say that you've seen improvements in your speed or your power riding inside versus riding outside?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, 100%. I mean, yeah, I mean, it translates really well. In fact, I will tell you that your power outside is much higher than showing what's on the power meter indoors. And I think for whatever reason, because I got the same stages type thing that Brandon has, that'll measure your power. But it just seems like if you're on a training program and you stick with a training program for 6 weeks and then you get outside on a bike, it's night and day. It is really effective, unfortunately.
Definitely faster. It does not teach you how to actually handle your bike though. So that's one catch. So you cannot exclusively go ride this and then jump right in the middle of a big group ride once things open back up. So it's smart to learn how to handle your bike too. Take it from a guy who's crashed a couple times. Triathletes are bad bike handlers.
All right.
Yeah, and then just from my experience, what I always see, I can tell I'm getting in the proper fitness, and I know my fitness is peaking in the right direction when I can consistently hit, day after day, week after week, workouts on the trainer as they become easier. I know I'm starting to peak and improve my fitness, and it's an easy tell as well too if I'm either overtraining, I have too much stress in my life, or whatever it may be, as I start to, I can't put together back-to-back workouts on the trainer. It is just too difficult. So it definitely does keep you honest, and it's a great tool to really measure your fitness that way.
Great, I love that. Have any of you ever tried Ruvi or Big Ring VR? And if you have, could you make some comparisons or maybe talk to us about why you chose Zwift over them?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, you don't have to know.
I've not tried, but Ruvi is one that's piquing a lot of people's interest. Partially in the triathlon world, Ironman obviously has been devastated by all of this COVID stuff. Like a couple hundred events, I think, have been canceled so far, and they quickly transitioned to a virtual race program, and that's powered by Ruvi, and it's comparable in some ways to Zwift, but rather than having these fictitious universes. So what you can see behind me is a big desert. It kind of looks like somewhere in Utah. Ruvi actually maps out real road courses. So you could go decide you wanted to ride the Ironman Boulder course, and what you're riding is the actual roads, while the person on screen is still an avatar. So it's comparable. I think one of the big differences for me, at least at this point, is there's something to be said, and Sully looks for where the most riders are. Like I've seen 40,000 people on a Zwift, on Zwift Watopia on a weekend. And that there's something really interesting about that, like kind of like global feel to it. And Ruvi certainly isn't there yet. And that's not to say they won't get there, but I don't know, like Zwift's done a pretty good job at catching me so far. So I might try it, but I don't know.
Hey, Jason, by the way, it doesn't look like a desert in Utah behind you. It looks like a gas station in Santee. I'm just keeping it real, brother.
We also have a beautiful question, Brandon. Most of the attendees actually are curious how you have such a stylish face, tan and burn from indoor riding. Like, how did you accomplish that by riding your bike in your garage?
I say this has to sound like probably someone from the MDC who is telling me to apply more sunscreen. Yeah, obviously the nose gets hit just because when I do get those opportunities to get outdoors, I am doing all of my long rides outdoors, on the weekends. So I am applying. So everyone, don't worry. It's just being stuck outside for a long time. But I appreciate the compliments on the good-looking face.
Before we wrap things up, I would love to hear each of your 2 favorite rides on Zwift and your least 2 favorite rides. So if it's like, hey, you're new to this, don't do it. And hey, I love this, or I hope that you can eventually reach this. I think that that would be really good information to share.
I'll go with the volcano ride's pretty fun. I think actually my favorite ride on Zwift is Emily's short mix, because it's only like 25 minutes, and you're on and off of there, and you're sweating pretty good. And the least favorite ride is anytime I have to get on an indoor trainer, would be no matter what the program is, and if it's more than 10 minutes long.
Jason?
Although at the same time, I want to be very clear. I endorse it 100%. I wouldn't be able to ride at the level I ride it without it. I just hate it. That's all.
So you're here on the show to tell us you need it, and
yeah, this is lipstick on a pig.
Stronger and better, but it's not always enjoyable.
This is lipstick on a pig any way you look at it. I mean, yes, you can put Zwift up, you can put Trainer Road up, you can watch all 3 Godfather movies at the same time. It still sucks, but it will help you ride better. I tell people all the time, forget the Peloton bike and all the that stuff it's nonsense. And forget the spin classes, although they're super fun. You're not going to get in cycling shape unless you get on a trainer, or you can get out in the road for 150, 200 miles a week. And riding on a trainer sucks. Did I mention that? It hurts. Life is hard, but it's not as hard as riding on a trainer. I can tell you that.
Ooh, that's a good one.
New t-shirt. So favorite ride and least favorite. Well, I'm on this dumb quest now because all I have is the Zwift trainer to complete every course across all the Zwift worlds, and I think I've got like the 4 or 5 hardest ones left. But it is pretty. I mean, even though it's fake, they have like a faux Alpe d'Huez that you can climb up. That's pretty cool. So that I'll maybe throw that there. And least favorite, they have a whole world centered around New York Central Park. I despise that whole setup. I don't know why. It's like all rolling hills. There's nothing flat where you can get a good rhythm going. So I usually try to avoid that unless there's like something happening.
Good to know. Brandon?
Yeah, I'm with Jason, but the opposite. I look for any flat rides. So I like when it will tell you if it's flat or not. So you can just knock out as many miles as you possibly can on those. So I definitely do that. But honestly, a lot of the riding that I'm doing on Zwift is just structured training. So it doesn't matter what course you're on, because I am in that lovely erg mode that Sally likes so much that it's just going to put you at that power regardless, and you're going to go up the hill at whatever speed that power is going to generate for you.
Awesome. Any other questions, any comments from you guys? We'll say a few more things, but I just want to make sure everybody knows we're almost at time. So if there's anything else that you want to ask the group, throw it in the Q&A. But in the meantime, if we don't say anything else, Jason, I would love if you would maybe tell the group what exciting opportunity we have coming up with Zwift.
Okay, well, I'll give 2 because I think there are 2. The first being, many of maybe in this audience are part of the CAF cycling club. That's obviously not happening in person just yet, but it is happening now on Zwift every Saturday, 8 a.m. I believe, Jamie. So I'm sure we can send out like the instruction on how to do that. But you follow CAF Cycling's person, and that gets you the invite into the ride itself. So would definitely encourage that. It's usually like an hour ride. One of those ones that Brandon talked about, like it is a no drop ride. And so it's kind of cool seeing, again, like you see athletes, supporters, cycling club folks on that every week, and it's growing by the week. And then finally, up on the screen now, we've confirmed a bigger event. So there's like meetups, smaller, less formal. And then we got on Zwift's calendar with an actual event, which is a pretty big deal, with our good friend Jens Voigt, who many of you probably know from the Pro Tour. And if you watch Tour de France, he's the sideline reporter. And he also supported us with the Yenzi ride last year up in NorCal. But he's going to be riding with us virtually alongside Mohamed Lana. Hopefully, Brandon, you're going to be a part of that too. But incredibly easy to get on the app and register for free. This is a really good opportunity for the broader CAF community to kind of show what we've got and hopefully bring in some new folks as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. Again, free, and I think we can send out all the info. And if you're not on Zwift yet, wait just like a couple more days, and then sign up for your free trial and get whatever kind of rinky-dink setup you can, so you can come ride with us and decide whether or not you like it. And then if you like it, you can really go deep internet and find some cool stuff on the best setups.
That's awesome. And does anybody know what the free trial is? Is it 7 days, 14 days?
We'll leave it 7.
Okay, 7. Well,
But who would ever ride that many times in a row? So you never really find out.
I did see, which was really great, a few of our new cycling club members joining us today. And so I do want to let you know, kind of to Jason's point, if you were one of our first 100 challenge athletes that joined our cycling club, you are given a $100 stipend, and that can go to a training program like Zwift or, Trainer Road or some sort of coaching, or it can supplement, maybe it can get you your speed and cadence sensor if you have a manual trainer at home and you can't afford a smart trainer. So please know that is available to you. And then just a couple more notes to add to what Jason was saying is we do have a new great global CAF cycling club. We used to have just 2. They were located in San Diego and obviously NorCal. That's why we're all here today, is because of our Bike Talk NorCal group. So we now expanded it so that anyone in the world of any ability level can join us with the CAF cycling club. And so all you have to do is just go to cafcycling.org and sign up. It is $120. You'll get a free jersey. You'll get sample training plans, how-to videos, opportunities for community engagements. And just like Sully said, and Jason and Brandon, like everyone said, you will fall in love with this community and you will never, ever be able to let go. Look at them now, 10 years later, 7 years later. You'll want to stick around. So we hope that if you're not already a member, you'll join us. And if you are a member, give the gift to somebody else. Let somebody else know how great this opportunity and this community is. So give it to a friend, a family member, or you can give the gift to a challenge athlete who maybe isn't already a member. And so give them a membership and they'll get that free $100 stipend and a jersey. And then lastly, aside from the CAF Cycling Club and the Yenzi Ride for Challenge Athletes on next Saturday, May 30th, you can also join us for MDC. So sign up, register the ride. We are still given that it is socially acceptable and responsible, and that we believe it's the right thing to do. We're moving forward and hoping to plan to do that. And so those dates, there's a big kickoff reception on October 10th. And then we'll ride down the coast of California and end in San Diego on Saturday, October 17th. So those are all ways to get involved or get involved more if you're not already. And so I just want to thank you all. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Sally and Brandon and Jason for joining us. And then I'm going to toss it to Lotta for her to end our official Bike Talk NorCal series.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Brendan, thank you for helping us stay motivated, given that you were going to go to the Paralympics and it got pushed out a year and you're still training. Jason, thank you for all the technology, and clearly I'm missing out. I will get a Swift account tomorrow. And Sully, thank you for helping me understand it's a necessary evil that I have avoided so far, but now I will embrace it. I see I'm missing out. So thank you so much. And for all of you that are missing being on the road with us, which I am really missing, we're going to finish out tonight with running the video for $1 Million Challenge last year to just inspire you and motivate you and keep training until we can get back on the road again. So thank you, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Okay.
Night.
Bye, guys.
I can still find Wiley's house
I'm almost done.
on my bike with eyes closed. I can name every girl that he took out from my memory dial his house phone. Can you take me back when we were just kids? We were scared to get older, yeah. No one knows you like they know you, but no one probably
You're here, like I get done. I'm like,
new ones. The truth is, nothing like old friends. 'Cause you can't make old friends. Yeah. I can still feel the windows down. Jimmy Eat World riding 3 wide on Blake's Pepsi. Yeah. My God, it's been 10 years now. I would have his back tomorrow, and he'd still fight anyone who tried to touch me. Can you take me back when we were just kids? We were scared to get older. One knows you like they know you. No one probably is. You can grow up, make new ones. Nothing like old friends. You can't make old friends. I've got some good friends now. I've never seen their parents back home. Wouldn't change how things turned out. There's no one in this time zone knows what inline skates that I. Can you take me back when we were just kids? We weren't scared of getting older. No one knows you like they know you, and no one probably ever will. You can grow up, make new ones, but the truth is that we grow up and wish we could go back then. It's nothing like old friends. 'Cause you can't make old friends. are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. You have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the dark night. It's true, I will rescue. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your soul, your I will send out an army, find you in the middle of the darkest night. I will rescue you. I will never stop marching. Reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true. I will rescue you. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing